Roll Tide and welcome to Crimson Tide Rewind. Live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, who reminds us, don't wait, vaccinate. Cory Reamer, I'm Roger Hoover. Roll Tide, it is always great to talk after a Crimson Tide win, especially in SEC play.
Yeah, it is, and everybody can take a breath. The world isn't coming to an end. We still have a winning football team. No, we're 1-0 in the SEC, and everybody's got to feel pretty good about what we saw on Saturday, especially in the second half. You know, being in the stadium during that first half, it was seeing a lot of the same mistakes and a lot of the same play that we had seen earlier in the season, and you could just tell that the vibe in the stadium was, is this going to be what it's going to be like for every game this season, or are we going to be able to turn it around? And I was excited to see how they responded in the second half. You just saw some life in them. There was a couple plays there in the second half, we'll probably get into it later, that really just sparked some momentum. And it looked like those guys were having fun. You know, it just, you could tell the sideline got into it. The players were getting into it. The fans even got into it. I mean, it was quiet in there for the first half. And for that change in momentum, brought about a lot of life to that stadium. And then they found a way to win that ball game and look good doing it. It was, you know, still a lot of things to be cleaned up from that game, but you got to be excited and encouraged by what we saw out of Jalen Milroe, what we definitely saw from that defense. That defense really stood up against an offense in Ole Miss that had been putting up close to 500 yards a game, and to hold them to 10 points. And I was definitely excited to see the pace of play, the level of play that we had this past Saturday against the quality Ole Miss team.
Yeah, you go from that change from the first half to the second half. Alabama trailing 7-6 at halftime, outscores Ole Miss 18-3 in the second half. Is it anything that's said in the locker room? Is it sticking to the game plan? How can you explain a turnaround like we saw from Alabama in the second half?
You know, it could be a number of things, and I feel like there's definitely something that happened at halftime in terms of the players. Maybe it's just there's got to be a feeling at some point as a player with the expectations that are looming around this program where maybe some players stand up and they're just like, look, guys, we know we can play better than this. We know we've got to go out there and put this thing together. And I think it was a culmination of just hearing all the talk for the last few weeks and all the criticism of the program. And you finally just have to start taking some pride in it yourself as players. You know, the coaches can only take you so far. They can yell at you. They can try to get you motivated. They can try to put you in the right positions to make plays. But it's up to the players to go out there and make those plays and to bring the level of intensity to each game. And it might have just had a little spark, and it might have taken, you know, that hit that Jam Miller puts on the kickoff was a huge turn event, even though he's, you know, ejected from the game. But I don't think anybody would have traded that moment at all, because it just, like I said, it just did something to the intensity level. And I think it's just building confidence in this team. And, you know, last year was the same thing. We watched these last year, that team go out there, and it just didn't seem like they had the enthusiasm. They were trying to just play, you know, a perfect game, which is what the expectation is to execute at a high level. But I think there's usually some confusion between what coaches say and what the players are hearing from that standpoint. They want you to go play fast and go have a good time doing it, but they expect you to play, you know, not perfect, but eliminate the mistakes as much as possible. And it can make these players have a little bit of hesitation, not going out there and enjoying it as much as they can. And it seems like that the second half, it really might have turned a corner. You could have picked a better time, and now we got a Mississippi State team that we get to be prepared for. It's going to be a rowdy environment, but after the last two games, started from the last drive in South Florida, going into this game, and we come out a little bit flat, but we finished really strong. We still got a lot of pieces of the puzzle to put together in terms of putting a complete game out there, but we just keep putting the building blocks on top of each other, and hopefully we'll figure it out, you know, for the rest of the season going forward.
Tonight on the show, we're going to talk all about the Ole Miss win. We're going to look ahead to what's coming up on Saturday as well in Starkville against Mississippi State. If you'd like to join us on Crimson Tide Rewind tonight, just give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline. The number to dial, 877-202-BAMA. We're just getting started with Crimson Tide Rewind. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
41-yard kick between the hash marks. It goes from snapping at the 1 to a 41-yard kick. And thankfully, Will Reichert is able to convert. Boy, that was tough right there. That hurt.
Timeout.
If you'd like to join us on Crimson Tide Rewind tonight, give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline, 877-202-BAMA. Our next question is brought to you by Alabama 811 to help prevent injuries, outages, and loss of life. Call 811 or visit AL811 before you dig. It's free, it's simple, and it's the law. Next question, how about the play of Jalen Milroe?
Yeah, you got to be excited about the way he played in the second half. Obviously, coming out and throwing the interception that it's hard to explain. Those are the things that we got to eliminate. But I feel like Tommy Rees did a great job of reassessing what this offense is going to look like with Jalen Milroe at quarterback. You saw a lot more design quarterback runs, making plays with his feet. And he seemed to, have a better grasp of the game plan this go-around than he has in the first few weeks. Outside of just, throwing the interception in the end zone. There's still some miscues in terms you got to get Seth McLaughlin and Jalen Milroe on the same page, not being able to punch it in from the one. But you saw Tommy Rees also get back under center and run some quarterback sneaks after messing that one up. But I thought he played well. I thought he played extremely well. He seemed to get the running backs involved a lot more in this game, in the passing game, and we saw a lot more from the tight ends as well. Finding those guys and not asking him to do too much. He seemed to be, if he sees the read, if it's not there, he's not afraid to take off and make plays with his feet. A couple times, I think if you had to find something to knock on him, he's holding on to the ball and he really wants to make a play downfield with his arm when there's obviously nothing there, and he ends up getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage or taking some plays for a loss. That's something that I know the staff and Jalen Milroe are going to sit down and talk about. Don't try to force it. Don't try to do too much. Don't take losses on plays. Throw the ball away. Live to fight another down. And don't try to force throws that aren't there. But I thought he did a great job of finding the guys open. He made a lot of good completions. I was impressed with the poise and, like we talked about in the first segment, just the momentum that he brings to this offense. When you saw him get the wind knocked out of him, he bounces up, he gets the stadium going. Really was the start of the run in the second half that really put this game away.
Certainly was fun to see for Jalen Milroe and the Crimson Tide in the 24-10 win against Ole Miss on Saturday in Tuscaloosa. PNC Bank is pleased to be back this season with the PNC Achievers. Throughout the collegiate year, PNC Bank will salute both academic and athletic excellence through its proud partnership with the Crimson Tide. Again, we welcome your phone calls to the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline, 877-202-BAMA, the number to dial. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Milroe with men wide on the near side. They cut across the middle. Jalen throws long, looking, and it's caught by Jermaine Burton. He had a man on his back, but it didn't matter as Trey Washington could do nothing out the ball, and it was a 54-yard reception by Jermaine Burton. A beautiful play.
Eli Gold on the call for the play that really, Cory, seemed to wake up this Crimson Tide football team to start the third quarter.
Yeah, it's coming out of the halftime and you make a big play like that, get it started. Unfortunately, it only results in a field goal, which we were talking about the offense, but still is points, but at least it gives them some momentum. Know that you can have some of those big plays. That's not been the problem with Jalen Milroe. He has been phenomenal in the deep ball, and he's found his guys, and his receivers have done a lot for him. And Jermaine Burton is one of them that was making some spectacular plays. And then you also get Jalen Hall getting involved with the game, and it was a big welcome for him to get involved, making two big plays for this offense. But, the thing that we were talking about from an offensive standpoint is we really bogged down a few times when we started getting in the red zone. That is something that we're going to have to clean up and get more efficient in. I think we had the ball a few times in the first half in the red zone, all ended up in field goals. But the good thing is the defense gave Ole Miss the same problem. When they got down inside the 30, they really bogged down as well, and the defense was able to keep them out of the end zone at all except for one time. But that's definitely something that we're going to have to continue to build on. When you get the ball at the 1 yard line and you end up with a field goal, that's something that you can't have happen against good teams. But overall, it's been good to see this offense really starting to hit their stride, finding their playmakers and guys. There's a lot of talk about these players really getting behind Jalen Milroe, and the best thing you can do to keep him out there is to play good and make plays. And the receiver, especially in the receivers this game, they really stepped up and started making some big plays.
Love to see that for the Crimson Tide to win against Ole Miss on Saturday. If you'd like to join us on the show, there's another way you can join us as well, even if you don't call in. You can submit a question to us on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN. That's brought to you by AL.com, your source for SEC sports. We've talked a lot about the receivers. How about 10 different pass catchers getting involved? I say pass catchers because they're not all wide receivers, but the running backs, the tight end, we really got to see everything that Alabama had on Saturday.
Yeah, it was. And I think that it's got to be attributed to Jalen Milroe realizing that you don't have to make the big plays every single time you go out there. And you've got these release valves in your tight ends and your running backs that are out there. You can really spread the ball around. But I think he did a great job of not going just to his first reads. He was fine. Looked like he had some good read progressions going through, finding the open guy. The tight ends were very instrumental in getting open and making big plays. But that's a good sign that he's not looking down one guy every single play. He's going out there and finding the guys that are open. And I think there's still some opportunities to continue to improve from that standpoint. But it was much better than what we've seen from the first 3 weeks. He's not staring down one guy and trying to force a ball in tight windows. He's looking around, trying to find that open guy. Whether it's a running back, that's fine. It's just, a swing pass. Just get the ball in your playmaker's hands. And we saw what these guys can do once they get the ball. They're getting positive yardage. And from an offensive standpoint, that's what you want. You just want to continue this drive, getting first downs. It doesn't have to be big play after big play. Just keep the drive alive and keep us with the ball. Don't turn it over.
We've talked a lot about the offense so far for the Crimson Tide. When we come back, we will be talking about the defense that limited Ole Miss to only 10 points in this ball game. To join us tonight on the show, again, you can give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing Hotline at 877-202-BAMA as we come to you live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. It's ready for football, even with the Eagles and the Bucks just starting Monday Night Football. This is the place for football, fun, and great food with their special Big Game Headquarters menu. Get hooked on their delicious all-new lemon garlic salmon and the new char-grilled flat iron Callaway steak with the signature shrimp etouffee. Baumhower's legendary fun and legendary food. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
The Crimson Tide now with Oots in the left slot. Play action. Milroe looks long, has a man there. Touchdown, Alabama!
Crimson Tide winners on Saturday, 24-10, the final score against Ole Miss. If you'd like to join us on Crimson Tide Rewind, you can submit your question to us on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN. That's brought to you by AL.com, your source for SEC sports. Mentioned it, we're going to talk about this Crimson Tide defense. Even without Deontay Lawson for most of this football game, we saw a fired-up Kevin Steele-led Alabama defense.
Yeah, they really stepped up. It was huge. Only, like we talked about earlier on, it's holding this offense that was, putting up 500 yards a game, scoring a lot of points, and Lane Kiffin's coming in with a game plan trying to throw this defense off. Who he's going to try to attack. He's going to find the mismatches, whether it be from pre-snap motions, just trying to get a lot of different formations, and we saw a bunch of those early on, especially some really odd formations, trying to get some guys fumble. There's trying to get some guys off kilter, but he's going to, the way he does it is he always moves people around to try to isolate the matchup that he wants. And you could tell early on that he was really trying to go after Terrion Arnold, who I thought has stepped up in a big way for the last couple of weeks. We saw him against Texas, have a few big plays thrown up against him, comes away with an interception in this game, and had a few batted balls. And you could tell, you heard Lane Kiffin after the game talking about it, is like, that was our game plan. We were going after number 3, and he stepped up and played a really big game. It's one of the biggest compliments you can get as a defender. Had it happen to me against Mississippi State a number of years ago, offensive coordinator said the same thing. Our game plan was to attack you, and I played a great game. So Terrion Arnold, congratulations, kudos to him. He's building confidence, playing really well. But when you go in there, I think we didn't have any sacks against Texas. Turn around and have 5 sacks against this Ole Miss team. Limit them to 300 yards, not that many first downs. I mean, it was just a solid performance all around, and it started up front, especially in that second half. It was like the whole team just improved during halftime. I don't know what they fed them, but they're going to have to get that same meal in the halftime, in the locker room at halftime for every single week, because the pass rush just came alive. Whether it resulted in a sacks or not, those guys were collapsing the pocket, giving Jackson Dart all kinds of fits. And we talked about it last week when we were previewing this show, was you got to get him off of his mark, get his timing thrown off, make him throw the football faster than he wants to, and you're gonna cause some incompletions, and they did a great job.
Certainly did. Dallas Turner, 3.5 sacks. So that's now, I believe, 6 sacks that he's had the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's huge.
Effective.
I mean, that's the Dallas Turner we're needing to see. You know, with Will Anderson gone, you had Dallas Turner and Will Anderson last year, so you knew a lot of the double teams and the chip blocks and the extra focus was going to come on Will Anderson because he's such a bull in a china shop. He can tear stuff up, and you're waiting for these two guys. We heard a lot about in the preseason. Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell, you know, these are the two guys that are going to be able to pin it back and go get this quarterback. You saw a lot of footballs coming out fast against this defense early on to eliminate probably the best part of this defense, which is the front seven, getting some pressure. But secondary did a great job of locking down these receivers, getting a lot of coverage sacks, but also these guys were making a lot of fast moves and getting quarterback on the ground pretty early. It's good to see because you just got to have, especially in the offenses that we face in this league, you cannot let quarterbacks stand back there in the pocket clean and have all the time in the world to find guys open because the receivers are just too athletic. And DBs cannot cover them for more than 3 to 5 seconds. So you need those guys that are making these quarterbacks have to move off their mark and get that ball out early, and we did a great job of it Saturday.
Mentioned it before, Deontay Lawson goes out, the signal caller on that Crimson Tide defense with injury, and Coach Saban didn't really have an update on him earlier today, but did praise the play of Jahad Campbell, who stepped in, ended up being second on the team with 7 tackles on Saturday. Yeah,
he stepped in a big role. It was a huge ask from a guy that was really injured during camp, too, who wasn't getting the reps during camp. Jahad Campbell was somebody that Coach Saban was extremely excited about coming into this season. He's really shown a lot of improvement, and then to be asked to step into that middle linebacker signal caller role, not an easy job, but he played really well. You hate to lose Deontay Lawson. Looked like he rolled his ankle. Not sure exactly what the injury is. You hope it's something that he can bounce back from pretty quickly. But I thought they responded well without him on the field. He's just a leader. We've talked about it on the first show. He's the guy that during practice, he's holding everybody to the high standard that Coach Saban wants to see, making sure everybody's running off the field. He's getting on to guys for loafing. He's getting on to everybody, making sure they're doing their job and giving effort, and they're not just going through the motions. So you can't replace the intangibles. It's hard to replace the intangibles of a Deontay Lawson just because of the leader that he is. But I thought that Jahad Campbell did a great job.
Also, Malachi Moore had a tackle for a loss. We visited with him earlier today for a one-on-one interview that'll play during Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, coming up on Thursday at 2 o'clock. And I said, you got to love those opportunities when you're able to blitz, rush the quarterback. He goes, oh, yeah, I love sacking the quarterback.
Yeah, it's something that they don't get to do very often. And you saw, especially late in the game when we're trying to put it in hand, you got both safeties coming down from 12 yards deep, and he's the one who gets free and knocks Jackson Dart down on that 4th and I think 15 to end the ball game. Those are exciting plays for safety because they don't get to do it. They're all hanging out in the back and just watching everything unfold in front of them. So when you get guys like him and Caleb Downs that you get to tell them to get after the quarterback, you know that they get excited. Their blood gets to boiling a little bit because it's just not. That's the fun stuff that it's like some guys as defensive linemen love dropping back in coverage, even though it's not. They just think that because if they do something good like that, then they're like, you need to let me do it more often. Let me get out there and cover somebody. Marcel Darius, I think, covered a tight end against Tennessee and knocked the ball away. And he was like, man, I can play all over the field. Put me in the safety position. I'm out here to play. Malachi Moore is a guy that you can't say enough about. He's really evolved into a leader for this secondary unit. And he stepped up in a big way after having some struggles the last couple years. This has really turned into being his secondary. You can tell he's out there. A lot of the communication runs through him, and he stepped up and made a lot of big plays. Hopefully we can continue to keep him healthy. It only helps Caleb Downs and all these other guys, but I thought Kool-Aid had another bounce-back game after last week as well. I don't know how many batted balls we had, but there was a lot of plays that could have been interceptions, but batting the ball is just as good.
Yeah, 4 pass breakups for the Crimson Tide. You mentioned Kool-Aid. He also had a tackle for a loss, 10 tackles for a loss in this ballgame, 4 sacks by this Crimson Tide defense. And again, when it mattered most in the second half, only a field goal for Ole Miss.
Yeah, and I thought the best thing that I saw in the second half was that we were rallying to the football. Even when you had completions, we had guys covered downfield. They'd find a back or somebody slipping out to the side that had wide open space in front of them, or they were trying to run some screens and had blockers out there in position. I thought the DBs, and this is what you love to see from corners and those guys on the edge, when they're fighting through blocks on the edge, when you're trying to run quick games with screens, wide receiver screens, tunnel screens, they're fighting through blocks and making the guy with the ball have to bend and run backwards to get around him. It just gives the whole defense time to attack and get to the football and get the guy on the ground. And I thought early in this season we weren't doing a really good job of wrapping up and getting guys on the ground when we had the opportunity. But this past weekend, it felt like every time that there were guys around, they were able to wrap them up and get them on the ground.
Great performance by the Crimson Tide against 24-10. The final score against Ole Miss on Saturday. When we come back, we'll start looking ahead to what's coming up this Saturday when Alabama travels to Starkville to take on Mississippi State. You're listening to Crimson Tide Rewind. It's brought to you by the Alabama Department of Public Health, who reminds all Crimson Tide fans to stay up to date with all recommended vaccinations. Flu season is here and COVID-19 continues to affect our community. Don't wait, vaccinate. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Oots goes wide to the far side with two teammates. Three to the near side. And Simpson keeps it himself. Flag on the play. A face mask on Ole Miss. Simpson keeps it himself and gets the two-point conversion.
Hey, if you'd like to join us on Crimson Tide Rewind tonight, give us a call on the Yellowhammer Brewing hotline at 877-202-BAMA. Well, the Crimson Tide certainly enjoyed being back at home at Bryant-Denny Stadium this past Saturday, but now, Cory Reamer, it's time for some time on the road, starting with Mississippi State.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough test. We know how physical Mississippi State is, and this is just a game you could throw out the record books. You could throw out what they look like or have looked like up to this point. This is something that you've got a roster that's full. It's littered with people from Alabama, kind of like Ole Miss. You've got guys that take a lot of pride in this game. Not far from Tuscaloosa. You know, the fans really enjoy when we come into town. Fortunately, I was on one of the losses that we had when I was there when we were at Mississippi State. They take a lot of pride in this game. You know, they're going to step it up. You know, Will Arnett's a great coach, and he's got a phenomenal quarterback in Will Rogers, and they're trying to, kind of like Alabama, they're just trying to figure out what the identity of their team is. And you can't fall asleep on these guys because they've got the weapons, and they know how to run a fast-paced offense. They've got a lot of guys that can make a lot of plays, and a quarterback that can sling it all over the field. This is going to be a tough road test for us. You know, we're fortunate to have Ole Miss at home this past weekend. I thought it really played into how we rebounded in the second half after halftime. But now we got to take it on the road, and we got to do it in a hostile environment. The Cowbells are going to be crazy. As annoying as they are pretty effective and really messing up the offense and the rhythm that you got out there. But this is going to be a tough test. And you turn around, you got Texas A&M the next week. So two tough road tests that are coming up.
What's tougher, playing in Davis-Wade Stadium with all the Cowbells or being at home at the practice field or in the indoor facility with the Cowbell sound effects playing during practice? Yeah,
you can't replicate the real sound of it. But the best thing that you can do that we did for the Cowbells was, I think my senior season, we played at their place, and we got out to a pretty early lead. They showed up with all black uniforms. I had the stadium rocking, and I think we ended up winning 35-0. So we shut them up pretty quick. The best way you can silence those Cowbells is to come out and put points on the board and start to pulling away, and don't let the Mississippi State offense get in the end zone. And they quiet up pretty quick.
We hope to see that coming up on Saturday in Starkville. More on that when we continue on Crimson Tide Rewind. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Milrose snaps it, hands to Jace. Jace stumbles, he's on his feet, retains his balance, carries it in. Touchdown, Alabama! Touchdown, Alabama. Robbie Oots with a block. And the run-in by Jace McClellan, who I don't quite know how he didn't lose his footing, but that's why he's there and I'm up here.
If you have a taste for winning, Dreamland Barbecue offers the triple threat. Dine in, carry out, and catering. Dreamland Barbecue ain't nothing like them nowhere. Proud supporter of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Well, as we mentioned, Alabama with a 1-0 start to conference play, trying to get to 2-0 coming up this Saturday when the Crimson Tide take on the Mississippi State Bulldogs in Starkville. And that was really the focus of Coach Saban's press conference earlier today in Tuscaloosa.
You know, it's the first SEC road game, and this is actually a bigger challenge for us than the last two games, in my opinion, in terms of, you know, this team is very, you know, physical, very aggressive on defense, create a lot of negative plays. We got a lot of starters back. They know their system. They know their scheme. They play very, very well. You know, Zach Arnett, it's his system. He's a very good defensive coach. As the head coach, has done a really good job there. Obviously, the quarterback has been an outstanding player for a long time, but, you know, with, you know, the new offense that they run, there's a lot more balance in it. They've got two really good backs that are very, very productive when they run the football. They've got a really, really good receiver, you know, number 5, Griffin, who is very, very productive. And they made a lot of explosive plays. They throw for 250 yards or so in the passing game. They play really good on special teams. So, you know, this is an overall really, really good team, and it's going to be a real challenge for us playing on the road in the SEC to play against, you know, this team this week. And this is something that our players have to really focus on and do a great job in preparation so we can eliminate, you know, some of these things that have happened in games where, you know, whether they're drive stoppers or giving up a big play or whatever it is, we've got to eliminate those things.
And that was Coach Saban earlier today in Tuscaloosa. This season, stay cool with a free non-alcoholic drink of your choice when you purchase a limited edition Alabama Yeti. Those vintage Yeti cups only available at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Elevate your game day with Yeti. You're listening to Crimson Tide Rewind live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Ulysses Bentley is with him. Here's the snap. Pressure up the middle. Dart is drilled. And the ball comes over on the near sideline. Oh, my goodness, did he get hit.
Time to take a look at the prescription for success. It's presented by Payless Drugs. Payless Drugs, your locally owned family pharmacy. 4 locations here in Birmingham. Payless can handle your prescriptions, over-the-counter solutions, and home delivery. Payless at mynewpharmacy.com. Well, it's Alabama against Mississippi State on Saturday. Not only, Cory, do the Crimson Tide need to slow down the quarterback for the Bulldogs in Will Rogers, but how about the play of Tulu Griffin? He set a program record for the Bulldogs this past Saturday, 256 yards receiving against South Carolina.
Yeah, that's going to be a big deal. You saw that tough matchup at South Carolina. A lot of airing it out from this Mississippi State offense, and a lot of that had to do with the position they were in this game, getting behind against South Carolina, you know, unfortunately go away with a loss. But we've seen the big plays that this secondary was giving up early in the season, especially against Texas. I think that we had 5 or 6 that were over 30 yards. And the best thing you could do is to try to continue to get pressure on this offense. You heard Coach Saban reference this offense is going to look very different than what it looked like when Mike Leach was there. A lot more balance, more pro style. Will Rogers seems to have starting to pick up a little bit, starting to improve a little bit, get a little bit more comfortable with this system. You know he wants to throw it. That's what he's good at. It's what he went to Mississippi State for, is to have that air raid attack. That's the strength of his game. And he had a lot of success, like you said, 256 yards receiving this past weekend. That's a huge number. That's more than some offenses put up together total. So the passing game is something that we're going to have to continue to improve on. I like what I'm seeing from Terrion Arnold and those guys, Kool-Aid McKinstry, still putting those guys on islands and asking them to go make big plays. But the best thing you can do to help those guys is to continue to get pressure up front. And this front seven has been dialing it up lately. I expect to see a lot more of it this weekend.
We'll continue talking about Alabama against Mississippi State. Taking a look, though, at the SEC and college football from this past Saturday. It was pretty entertaining all across, especially some of the chatter kind of around some of the big matchups that we saw, especially Notre Dame and Ohio State.
Yeah, there was a lot of good games on this weekend. This was the weekend everybody was looking forward to with all the ranked matchups that we got. And that Ohio State Notre Dame game lived up to the bill, scoring with 3 seconds left to go in the game for Ohio State to pull out a big win. Notre Dame looks good. You got to give them credit from what they've been able to do this year so far. And Ohio State, they had some quarterback issues, just like Alabama going into this season. Who's going to be the guy that's the starter? Seems like they've found some answers there. But also looking around the conference, you saw LSU and Arkansas going all the way down to the wire. And Arkansas showing up after an unfortunate loss against BYU last week. But they're here to play. And Sam Pittman is a great coach. Did a phenomenal job of getting his team to rebound pretty quickly against a good LSU team. Unfortunately, they also walk away with a loss. But this conference, man, it's each week is going to be interesting. There is no longer the two dominant programs across the board, 2 or 3 guys who are going to emerge as the leaders of the pack in this conference. Each team is good with the transfer portal and all the NIL deals that everybody's got going on. The talent seems to be spreading across the board, and it makes it even harder on a week-by-week basis playing in this league, even with a team, that's stacked with 5 stars versus a team that doesn't have near as many. Those teams are competing. They got some guys that are hungry that are out there to play, and so this weekend's going to be a big test on the road, and then we turn around and go to Texas A&M, who look pretty solid. Connor Wigman, their quarterback, goes down. Sounds like he's going to be out for a couple weeks for Texas A&M, but you saw what Max Johnson did coming in and replacing him, and they did not miss a beat. And so we better be ready to go this week and next week, because these are going to be 2 tough tests.
Yeah, he's played well against Alabama before 2 years ago, and then he was at that time playing for LSU. You mentioned they got the win against Arkansas. For Ole Miss, this is a huge home game they have coming up on Saturday, hosting LSU, because if you fall in that one, all of a sudden they're 0-2 and on really the outside looking in.
Yeah, and this is the absolute test for teams after they come into Alabama, and you saw the emphasis that every team has when they, you saw what Texas did. You hope it's not their Super Bowl, but a lot of people treat it that way because everybody wants to get a win against an Alabama team. Texas turns around the next week, has Wyoming, and I think it's 10-10 going into the fourth quarter. They pull away late, get the win, but how do teams respond, and how's Lane Kiffin going to be able to get this Ole Miss team to respond? They were a strong team last year, I think undefeated in the SEC when they came to us, when we played them at their place. And then they turn around and have a skid, and I think they didn't win a ball game from then on out. So this is, if you are Lane Kiffin and you're trying to become a head coach, you've heard rumors that he's got goals and aspirations. We're not going to say about where, but he is interested in, obviously, he's doing a great job at Ole Miss, but seeing how he can respond against a good LSU team coming to their place this week, it's going to be a huge test. And Brian Kelly and that offense has shown kinks in the armor with all the respect they had coming into this season. Already dropped 1 game, but this is an opportunity for Ole Miss to do exactly what they had plans to do against Alabama, is to go upset at LSU, who's a contender for the SEC West.
Great college football Saturday coming up. Of course, the Crimson Tide will be in Starkville to take on Mississippi State. We'll be back with one final segment of Crimson Tide Rewind coming up. This show brought to you by the Alabama Department of Public Health, who reminds Bama fans, don't wait, vaccinate. For more information, visit alabamapublichealth.gov/IMN. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. What's on tap next for Bama is brought to you by Yellowhammer Brewing. Hit your stride with a refreshing Yellowhammer beer. Now at Bryant-Denny Stadium and stores near you. Well, next up for the Crimson Tide will be that road trip to Starkville to hear all those ringing cowbells against Mississippi State coming up at Davis-Wade Stadium on Saturday. Game day broadcast will start at 5 o'clock. Kickoff scheduled for 8 p.m., so a late night coming up between Alabama and Mississippi State. That game also presented by visitpensacola.com. Pensacola is a wonderful destination for maybe if the Crimson Tide are on the road, you're not following Alabama, to a place like Starkville or Bryan College Station. Go enjoy the game down in Pensacola, Florida. The white sand, the food, everything is just perfect in Pensacola.
Man, you got me sold. Let's go. I'm ready. We do our show from down there.
We've done it before.
Yeah,
a couple times. Yeah.
Actually, remote locations are the best. I'm sure they got a Baumhower somewhere close by.
Absolutely. It's a great spot. And we know the Crimson Tide, they've kind of enjoyed their trips to Starkville over the last few years, especially in the Saban area.
Yeah, we have. And it's going to be a tough test. We've had some blowout wins, but we've had some tough contests too. And I think this weekend it's really going to see if this Alabama team can show up like they did in the second half. You look at what this offensive line did to improve in the second half. You know, in the first half, we gave up 4 sacks and had 10 tackles for loss, only running the ball for just above 1 yard per carry. And this is an environment that you've got to have some solid offensive line play, and you've got to be able to establish the run. You know, Jace McClellan and those running backs turned it on in the second half, averaging close to 6 yards a carry in that second half. And he's also leading the SEC in forced tackles missed. You know, he's a guy that doesn't get brought down on first contact. And this offensive line gave him a lot of help in the second half this past weekend. We can't go out there and have a performance, though, like we did in the first half in the running game and in pass protection if we expect to get wins, because this is just going to put this offense behind the 8 ball. We've got to be able to push guys off the line of scrimmage, establish the run, and that opens up this offense like we saw in the second half on Saturday for us to put this game in hand. But if we allow them to come in there and get pressure and get Jalen Milroe on the ground, then we're going to have some trouble. I mean, that's any defense that we play this year. But that's definitely going to be one of the keys for this weekend is let this offensive line continue to gel, continue to grow, getting improvements every single week, and we'll establish this run early and often.
And just getting off to a fast start, especially look at the second half momentum Alabama played with against Ole Miss. You're able to carry that over, get off to that quick start like you mentioned. That's the best way to sound cowbells. That could really be great for this football team.
Yeah, it's always, and that's what Coach Saban always emphasizes, you've got to start fast because you don't want to give another team just a glimmer of hope. You know, even if they're coming into it, they believe during the warm-ups and during the week of practice that they've got a chance to beat this Alabama team at their place. And then you come in, you've got those first few drives that end up in punts. You don't really have success on the offensive side of the ball for Alabama. Then that something clicks on the opposing sideline. They start to believe that they've got a chance to win the ball game. You've got to eliminate that and go out there and put it away early. And if you're forcing Mississippi State to climb from behind and we continue to have success on the offensive side of the ball, and it might not just be the offense. We saw this past weekend what a big deal it is to get a punt blocked. Yep. You know, that changes the momentum of the game as well. We got to have from all elements of the game, get off the field on third down. We still had some conversions on third and fourth and long situations from this defense. We got to eliminate those. Don't let them have any type of hope and remove that from them early from this game, and you'll be able to you can have a clear path to victory. It's just as easy as that as we talk about it here from Baumhower.
Yeah, just play fundamental football. That's all Alabama has to do.
That's it. It's easy. So easy.
Well, we look forward to what's coming up again. Alabama against Mississippi State. Back-to-back road games for the Crimson Tide, and also we know it'll be a 2:30 kickoff coming up the week after in Bryan College Station, Texas, for Alabama against Texas A&M. So again, Cory, playing football in the SEC is one thing. Playing SEC football on the road is another.
Yeah, it is. It's a completely different environment. Like we talked about a lot. It's just when you go to places like this, and you know, when Texas came to town, heard their fans talking about how much more exciting the environment is, how these fan bases really get behind their team and really cause problems for teams that are coming in from the road. So we better be on our A game because you never know what can happen on the road. We've seen it already this season, teams that are losing during away games. So we better be prepared.
Look forward to talking to you Saturday. Roll Tide.
Hey, Roll Tide. Appreciate it, Roger.
That's Cory Reamer. I'm Roger Hoover, and that is going to do it for this edition of Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. If you missed any portion of tonight's show, catch it on demand on the Alabama Insider Podcast. Thanks to Todd Robbins, Cory Reamer, as well as Jerry Kelly back at our studios. I'm Roger Hoover saying thank you for listening, and Roll Tide.